So I was meant to actually have a guest on today, but it hasn't quite worked out. So I thought I'd do a solo podcast, and it's actually my first solo podcast since doing the very first one I did, the introduction back in 2018, and that was a way just to introduce myself and my story, and as a very different person. Then I haven't actually heard that episode in a long time, so I'd love to hear it back and see the difference in the evolution. But I thought I'd take this opportunity just to share where I'm at right now and to really talk about intuition. That's what this is really about. Because where I'm at right now has come about because of following my intuition. And it's this concept of the inner voice. Excuse me. Um, the concept of the inner voice and how our inner voice can be mixed up with our intuition. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's in like upon reflection, I think there's two inner voices. Um, the inner voice and the inner voice. And the first one is basically like a mixture of what your teachers say, what other people say, um, friends, family, all that kind of stuff. So basically what other people say about you, and you take on those beliefs as your own, and they become who you are and how you navigate the world for the most part, right? So you're shaped primarily by that voice. It's basically an echo of someone else. So most of our lives, most of us follow a voice that is an echo of someone else, not our own authentic voice, which is our intuition. And what I call that, or the name I've given it, is the inner voice. It's the one behind the one that you hear in your head. Because the one that's in your head most of the time is the inner voice that's made up of other people, and the dial, the volume is really high on that one. And if you think about your inner voice being the more quiet voice, the dial has been turned down over time because it's overshadowed by this other one. And yeah, it's just like really getting into a space of being quiet and aware of which one is which. Because there's emotions attached to each one, right? There's emotions attached to each one. And the first one feels more heavy, the inner voice. And at first, you can't even tell that it's someone else's voice. You still think it's your own, but you just feel kind of heavy, and something doesn't feel quite right, but you do it anyway. It feels misaligned to some extent. Deep down, you know it does, and you feel a little bit anxious following it because you know it's not necessarily your decisions that you're making, but you think they are, or you've convinced yourself they are, but it's not. And there's a book by Rollo May called Man's Search for Himself, and he's an existential psychologist. One of his patients, in his book, he writes that one of his patients said, um, or described the way that he felt was he was a collection of mirrors reflecting what other people wanted. So he was basically showing up in the ways that other people wanted for him, um, and it was never his own. So he was a collection of these actions and thoughts and beliefs that other people expected of him. And so he'd worn all of these masks and got to a point where he was no longer in touch with himself. I feel like that is, no, it feels kind of weird with the headphones, without the headphones. Just took them off to test. I'll keep them in. Usually I keep them in just to hear the guest, but I'm kind of used to this setup now, so I'll just keep them in because it blocks out the noise outside, so I can't really hear now. I'm not distracted. Um, So what was I saying? I was saying that, yeah, he got to a point in his life where, and many of us get to this space, and I've been there early on, and luckily I didn't let it continue. Most people let it continue into their midlife, and I think that that's what you call a midlife crisis. But what ends up happening is that you wear all of these masks, following other people's um, beliefs and expectations and judgments of you, take them on as your own, and use that as a way to navigate your life. And so you end up in a space in your 30s, 40s, 50s that you never planned for yourself. Um, and there's a distinction, right, between ending up in a place that you didn't plan and not be happy with it, and ending up in a place that you didn't plan because you surrendered to your inner voice, your intuition, because that can equally surprise you, but the emotions are different. Your life doesn't have to go to plan, but it has to feel like your own. That's the difference. Does it feel like your own? Does it feel like your life? Or do you feel like you're living someone else's? Because you'll be able to tell from the emotions that you feel. Do the actions that you take feel aligned to you? Do they fulfill something deep down within you? Or are you an empty shell going through the motions because that's what you think you should be doing? So I'll rewind a little bit to um kind of give people some light on my journey, give you, whoever's listening right now, to give you some light on my journey, and or rather shed some light on my journey. Um because the evolution's been insane, man. It's been insane. Because I've gone through distinct milestones now in hindsight when I look back, in my 20s, in my teens as well, in my 20s, just turned 30 in May. So looking at the last decade, it's been a privilege to see, to be alive, first of all, to have hindsight. The fact that I'm still alive, I'm grateful for, because I get to experience life and continue to engage my five senses in this 3D world. But I also get to reflect and really see the evolution that's taken place in the last decade. Because I thought I was going to be in a very different place by 30, which is interesting, because if it now, where I am now, I didn't expect, and that in a good way. I didn't expect it because I allowed myself to follow my inner voice, and it could have gone wrong early on. So what ended up happening was, in school, I decided to, like, going from school to university, I decided to do law, which was something I chose to do. I love English literature, history, all the subjects that included writing and dissertations and essays. I love that stuff. Reading and writing are my forte, which I didn't quite know then. Didn't own it as much as I do now. It's just what I was good at, because I didn't like, numbers never made sense to me. Numbers never made sense to me. Science kind of bored me. Art was great, but not the type of art that they made me do. Drawing I love drawing, but drawing a fruit basket and painting, and it, it it was, my art is different. My art is communication. My art is conversation. My art is poetry. So it's very different, but it took time to find the artist in me, to reconnect with the artist in me, and not be told that that's not a job that you can get paid for, because you can. Your gift is what you're here to give the world. Your gift is what you're here to discover and then give the world. And you're here to receive other people's gifts. Everyone's come here to do something, to serve a purpose. Every individual holds a particular vibration that is contributing to the health or the destruction of the planet, depending on how you're showing up. We could all be contributing to the health of the planet if we live in our gift. which is in complete alignment with who we are and our authentic self. But that requires a journey of self-discovery, requires a journey of courage and fearlessness to step into the unknown, to take off those masks and figure out, who am I? Who am I? What did I come here to do? A conversation that I love having over and over, because that one simple question unlocks such a big conversation. Who am I? I'm not my name, not my job title. I'm not my ambitions. I'm not the money that I earn. I'm not my school grades. I'm not my accomplishments. I'm beyond that. You know, in the ancient scriptures, in the Upanishads, in the Hindu scriptures, the way they describe it is, I am that. I am that. Because you can't name it. It's unnameable. It's unknowable. And it's not something that you can point to, because everything is it, including the finger that's pointing to it. You know, so it's very hard to describe, but it's a feeling of interconnectedness with everything, interconnectedness and interdependence with everything. And yeah, I you know what, I just, as time has gone on, I just feel like my number one priority is to excavate my gift, to discover more of my authentic self, authentic self, and serve that to the world, give that to the world in the best way that I can. And that process gives me joy of figuring it out, discovering it, and then serving it to people in exchange for value, whether that's monetary value, whether that's their gift, me receiving their gift, whatever means. It's just the feeling of tapping into that inner space that's uniquely mine, and that energy. Because from that space, from that abundant space, it's just unlimited, the energy that you have. And you know that feeling when you've tapped into your gift, whatever that is. Could be singing, could be dancing, could be conversations, it could be painting, could be cooking, could be gardening, cleaning, could be teaching, whatever. Whatever you're creating, we're all creators. We are all creators. We're here to create something. What are you here to create? That's the question. What are you here to create? That's what this whole thing is about. You know, discovering who you are. And then from that space, as time goes on, you learn what you're here to create, what brings you joy, what makes you come alive, what makes you feel passionate, what makes you feel connected. And you're not going to know coming out the gate at 15, 16, 17, 20, 25, 30. You may not know straight away, because it's something to discover over time. I didn't know I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So to go back to, gone off on a lot of tangents there, but that's how my mind works. I've got to follow that rhythm. So went to university 2010. So 2010 to 2014, I studied at university, then went to law school. But in that time, towards the end of it, I kind of got the sense, it was just a sense, you know, and Ram Dass talks about this, when you're tapping into your dharma, it's not this, at least in my experience, you know, according to what he says, it's not this big download that comes and your life changes overnight because you're like, I know exactly what I need to do now. I know what my purpose is. It's not like that. It's just a small nudge in the right direction. It's just a sense. And not even a sense of what it is. It's a sense of what it's not. It's a sense of what it's not. And I remember I went to a business seminar that was being held randomly by this successful insurance business guy at university, and something told me to go. And I told my friend who was living with me at the time, I said, we got to go to this. No idea why. No interest in business, consciously anyway. But there was just something about the independence of doing your own thing, giving your gift to the world, selling. There was just something about that. So we attended, And it was in that seminar I realized we had the very first business idea we had. It came through as like a feeling of excitement, because at the beginning it was like this sense of, I don't want to do law, but I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to be doing necessarily. And then when I went to this seminar, I was like, oh, business. But again, what business? And so then towards the end of the seminar, the idea for the app came about. It was a wallpaper app, and we followed it. It was so exciting. It felt like there was nothing else exciting going on in the world. So it's just this little nudge in the right direction. So just followed it. I had no idea where it would take me, what it would do, what experience it would give me. Being naive, I'm thinking I'm going to be a millionaire off this idea. In hindsight, that's definitely not the case, but it was just this feeling of following independence, not following the well-trodden path, not following the thing I'm supposed to be doing, because it never felt right to be doing the thing that other people told me I'd be doing. And I don't regret going to university, because I met so many great people, and the experiences I had there, and the content itself was great. I loved the law. Um, watching Suits, watching court cases, the court case dramas, all of that kind of stuff, court case movies, law abiding citizen, all that kind of stuff. I love it. Absolutely love it. But do I want to be a lawyer? No. Where the intersection was, I later realized, was communication is my gift, but it didn't have to be used in a courtroom. Um, so, so yeah, time went on, and I did that application, followed through with it, went to law school, graduated and qualified. Well, not qualified, that's a slightly separate thing. I graduated, but then you have to do 2 years with a firm to qualify. So I didn't qualify, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to finish the education side. So I did that. And then I did the application, that failed, did another application, it failed, started a couple of websites, started an eBay store, got blacklisted on eBay because we're selling, I think, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze. Didn't come out. We we were selling Prada and Gucci phone cases without Prada and Gucci's approval. Shipping shitloads of product from Alibaba, and then pricing it up for 100%, 200% more, and then and and then selling it on. And we made good profit. We did make good profit, but it just, so we got blacklisted, and then I started an Amazon affiliate store, and just wasn't making enough money to be sustainable. And it got to 2017 by that point. And throughout this time, the reason I was doing all of these things was to attain my financial independence, because I didn't want to work 9 to 5 forever. I knew that's not what I didn't want to do, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. So I did the next best thing I knew, which was following these business models that were working for other people, but they weren't authentic to me. They were other people's dreams. They were other people's exit strategies almost from the 9 to 5, but it wasn't mine. I thought because it worked for them, it's going to work for me. But at the end of the day, it didn't bring me any fulfillment, and it didn't work for me. And I'm glad it didn't, because I did not want a successful business that I wasn't happy with or proud of. And in hindsight, I'm glad it didn't work out. So in 2017, went to get a sales job, because I was like, well, if I'm going to get a job, might as well get it in something, in a skill that I actually want to cultivate, that I want to grow and learn and build on. So I went into sales, and it was like Wolf of Wall Street for like a year and a half. It was cold calling, recruitment agency. It was actually a really good experience. Long hours, but it was a really good experience, because it it taught me resilience. It taught me confidence. It taught me how to listen, how to really hear someone, how to hold conversation and follow the conversation without a script, based on what the other person is saying. Um, and really building relationships, because around that time I then started the idea for the podcast. because I wanted to connect with other people who I didn't necessarily have access to in my immediate network. And I wanted to reach out to them and have conversations and grow my network. And this platform gave me an excuse to do that, while also allowing me to express myself through conversation, through the through verbal conversation, and it's what I enjoy doing. I love it. So it was a no-brainer. So I started it. I didn't know what I was doing. Still don't, winging it every day. People who tell you that they got it all together and they know what they're doing. I don't think that that's true. I think we're all winging it to some extent. I definitely am. I'm just doing the next best thing that I know. That's it. I don't claim to be necessarily an expert in anything. That word sounds a bit too scientific. I'm just discovering more life. That's it. More ways of doing things and experimenting along the way. Don't be afraid to experiment. Experiment without expectation. Best advice that I've got. Experiment without expectation. That's how you're going to figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you like and what you dislike, what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of. You don't have to have it all figured out. You figure it out as you go. That's the whole point of the journey. The journey isn't to necessarily have it all together from the beginning, because that would be boring. It's an adventure to be explored, to be lived. And in hindsight, I think back to if business was ever a part of my life, and it was, when I was 15 years old, I used to buy stuff on eBay that I knew other people would watch, like The Wire or Sopranos or some Indian movies and some other games and stuff that I knew people wanted in school. I would buy it cheap on eBay and then mark it up for them and take it to school. And I would make like £10, £20, £30, £50. I remember I did that to one of my close friends, Lost. It was like season 2 or 3 or something before it came out in the UK. I had gotten a copy from my cousin because he had a friend who went to Japan or something, and it came out early there, or the States. I know, one of them, and he had it already on his computer, so he gave me a copy. I burnt it and made a copy, took it to school, and sold it for 20 quid. So, being 14, 15 years old, that's great. And I was delivering newspapers before that. And then I got a retail job as soon as I could. So I always wanted to hustle. I always wanted to earn money and express myself and do something that would allow me to gain some skills and some money at the same time. So yeah, I mean, throughout all of this, it was just listening to the nudges that I was getting and trusting that they would go somewhere. And in 2018, I again felt the nudge to go to this entrepreneurs event in Vegas. Never been to Vegas, just randomly thought to go to this entrepreneurs event, and I wanted to connect with more like-minded people. So I thought, fuck it, let's go. Booked the ticket and went on my own. And I ended up bumping into my now mentor and coach, Philip McKernan, because he was speaking there, and we bumped into each other in a line for coffee one day. And then he came on the podcast. He got me involved with his work and his workshop, helped me reconnect to my story. And yeah, that was 2000. And as I went into 2019, that's what it was all about, reconnecting to my story, really diving deep into this work now that I'm doing for other people. And then I also felt the pull at the same time to go to Peru and do ayahuasca, which really grounded me and expanded my awareness in different ways and really humbled me, actually. Because I had a whole list of questions that I went there with, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to get all of these answered, and I'm going to come back a changed person in a week's time. None of those questions got answered, and it was really this slap in the face almost, that I'm going to get what I need, not what I want. And the plant and universal wisdom is much, much older, much, much more ancient, much, much more wise than my ego mind. And if I allow myself to connect to my intuition, to connect to this ancient space, that has no name, that isn't in time, that isn't in space, that is not destructible. That space, I can channel that wisdom and allow it to guide me. Not what I think I should do, what I think I should be knowing, what I think I should be asking, but allowing whatever is meant to be, to just come through the way it's meant to, and to follow that. And in 2019, the two books that really stood out to me, that really guided me, and I felt like they really came into my life at a critical time, was Autobiography of a Yogi. Phenomenal book that helped me level up my faith in the unseen. And The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which helped me level up my faith in the process, in the journey, in the unknown, in the adventure of it all. I won't give away too much about what those books are about, but I highly, highly recommend buying those, either as books or as Audible copies. I bought them on Audible because I loved walking at that time. I still love walking, but I was walking a lot then to and from work, and I listened to them constantly on the way there, on the way back, at lunch break, and just the narration is really, really good for both of those books. So if you love listening to audibles, get those on there. But I think I'll leave this here. Actually, it feels like a nice time to end it. I don't want to go on too much, because this topic of following intuition and asking the question, who are you? What are you here to create? What are you here to do? Is a big one to just sit with. And I think you can do all the talking in the world, but until you sit to actually reflect and allow the emotions of, in response to that question inside you, to come up and to explore that however you feel called to explore it, it's not going to really do much. You can listen to me, listen to a million podcasts on it, whatever, but unless you actually sit with your own feelings and reconnect to your story, who you are, where you've been so far, what you've done, is that who you want to be? Is who you've been who you want to continue to be? Or is it time for a change? Is it time for the trajectory to change, for you to turn the page in the book of your life and to start a new chapter? Because after 2019 and 2020, I wrote my book, Searching in Silence, reflecting on all this stuff that I've told you, this whole journey. That's how the book ended up coming up, as I started playing with some words, reflecting on my story, and then began to actually step into my role as a coach. And I realized, midway through 2021, that like, shit, I do this. I talk to people. I coach them already unconsciously. I have great conversations and share insight and help other people see what they're not seeing within themselves, creating a safe space to ask questions and to stir up conversations to help them explore deeper within themselves, to reconnect to your soul essence. That's what it's all about. I don't see the point in living if you're not going to reconnect to that soul essence, because that's where your magic is. That's what has all of the answers that are unique to you. It's what your legacy is going to be. Anyway, sending you lots of love. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon. I may or may not do another solo episode, but it was a blessing that today's guest didn't quite work out, because it gave me the chance to record this. Big love.